day.
The Expansion Zone with Sonia Barrett.
Everybody's talking about consciousness. Everybody wants that eternal kiss. Yeah, everyone's saying there's more than this. Everyone wants to follow their own bliss. Talking about one love, one blood. We sing Om Shanti.
On the Expansion Zone, we examine life and our quest to understand who and what we are and of the vastness of human potentials. We explore the making of our world from quantum physics to parapsychology, health, sociology, and philosophy, along with practical living. You are reminded of the possibilities in creating personal change. So for an hour, we'll stimulate and expand the mind.
Shanti, 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 Shanti. Sing the world. Let's do it together. Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. It's time to wake up. Shanti, Shanti, Shanti.
Well, welcome once again to another edition of the Expansion Zone with Sonia Barrett. I'm, of course, your host, Sonia Barrett. And Happy New Year's to you. Well, you, my beautiful listeners, for hanging with me through another cycle. And so welcome to 2022. Of course, wishing you a year of inspiration, self-discovery, and the courage to try something new. That's very necessary right now because, we're all sort of maybe stuck in the rut of the same thing all the time, but this is it. This is the year to go ahead and do it. Also, thanks to Donna Delori for the intro song, Be the Change. That's our theme song for the show. And of course, more than ever, we do need to be the change. Not just say it, but we actually do need to do that at this time. So once again, thanks for tuning in on this Monday. The very first Monday of 2022. And I have two short quotes for you today. And first quote is, Earth has no boundaries or barriers that man did not erect. I think that's really important right now. And that's Amelia Rose. And the second one is, do not wait until the conditions are perfect to begin. Beginning makes the conditions perfect. And that's Alan Cohen. So today's topic, I'm thinking it's going to be a number of things, but ancient knowledge and the practice for supporting the organs and the entire network of the body. Of course, we're going to be talking about Qigong and Chinese medicine and a lot of those ancient practices that we really need to be exposed to if we have not, if we're not aware of them at this point. And so my guest today is Chris Shelton, Tai Chi and Qigong master. And we're also going to be joined later by Parisa Shelton, who is also a certified yogi and Qigong practitioner and teacher. And she's also the co-founder of Shelton Qigong.com, which we'll hear more about. And they are a husband and wife team. So Chris has been on the show before. Chris Shelton has been here before. He's also my Qigong teacher, trainer. And so I love having him on the show because he has such a wealth of information. So we're going to let him do a lot of the sharing about the beginning of his journey here, but just a couple things. Chris Shelton has dedicated his life to boosting health, happiness, and healing transformations. Chris' belief in the healing powers of Qigong is rooted in first-hand experience. And so he's going to tell us a little bit about that, his teenage years, what he actually had experienced that sort of brought him into this area of understanding of Chinese medicine and the practice of Qigong and Tai Chi and so on. And so we're going to leave it right there and talk to him. And Parisa, she'll join us at some point as well. And she, as I said, is also a certified practitioner and teacher of Qigong, and she's a yogi as well. So, Chris, welcome to the show.
Hey, Sonia, thank you again for having me on your show.
Yes, it's always a pleasure to talk to you, as you know, chat with you. And so
Yes.
let's lead right into, because here we are, we're at the beginning of the year, a new year, and we're hoping that it really does feel new. And so before we lead into those tools that you're going to share with us, just share with the audience just a little bit about your journey, because it's so important, especially right now with people that are going through some of these maybe things that you experienced as a teenager. So would you share that with us?
Yeah, so the old story, not the one that I identified myself with, but the story that got me to this time and place for us to have this conversation. I grew up in a home where there was a neglect, a certain amount of abuse, and I started doing drugs at a young age. Fast forward, I had a heart attack at age 18, my senior year in high school, from a meth overdose, which that one should have killed me, according to the doctors, but it didn't. And because of my stubborn old self, I used again a few months later, had a second heart attack, this one less severe. And so it led me to change my path. I was, pain is the thing that wakes you up, or should wake you up anyways. And so I put myself into Taekwondo, and one night before a match, I was kicked in the back and then almost paralyzed from the waist down. And I went to a physician. The physician had a therapist working for her, and he was a martial artist. And, he started talking to me about Qi. I was like 19 years old now. I'm like, yeah, right, there's no such thing as Qi. And anyways, started talking to me about Qigong classes, and this was over 30 years ago. And I had other health problems too, mind you. I had severe sinus problems. I had severe digestive problems where I'd eat something and be nauseated or sick, later on. And so I had nothing to lose. And so I started taking these Qigong classes. And back then, nobody was talking about Qigong in the U.S., or very few people. And there's a couple of women in the class, and I started taking these classes. And within about 6 months, I couldn't tell you exactly when, but it was a realization like, oh, wow, when did I stop living on the antibiotics? When did I stop living on the Sudafed, the Actifed? Now I could eat an avocado and not be vomiting an hour later. When did that all change? And I realized that the only thing that really changed in my life was the introduction of Qigong. And I thought, man, if a simple, gentle movement and meditative practices could do this to my body, there must be something to the medicine. So then that's when I started studying Chinese medicine.
Man, I'm telling you, it's extensive. And the fact that you mentioned what you experienced in your earlier life, there's so many people right now that's experiencing some of these things, children in homes right now. Everything is at a heightened level, people's diets, physical illness. I was just reading something a couple of days ago about the pain that seemed to come for some people after having maybe had the virus, and of course, according to the article, it's based on inflammation that's still in the body. So let's lead into talking a bit about Qigong, the practice, Chinese medicine, some aspects that you think would be a great way to introduce someone to it that really has no knowledge of what Qi is and how this would affect
how to harness it. Yeah. So Qigong is a 5,000-year-old practice. It's the foundation of Tai Chi. Most people have heard of Tai Chi. It's also the foundation of acupuncture and Chinese medicine. And these simple practices are meant to harness one's own natural energy systems in the body. And if you don't believe in energy or have a concept of what Qi or energy is, then just think of it in terms of blood or fluids inside your body. Your blood is your Qi. And if you think about it, if you have weak blood, what happens is that you tend to have weak energy, right? So we see this interconnectedness between Qi and blood. There has to be some kind of energy inside the body to pump the heart, for the brain to function, for the nervous system to function. So whether you want to call it electricity at some level, Qi, energy, whatever you want to call it, there is definitely this life force that emanates within all of us. And the whole idea of Qigong is to empower a person to harness this life force energy, not only to improve their health, but all their longevity and their overall state of well-being. And right now in this time and space reality that we're living in, one of the great things about Qigong is that, number one, is it goes back to the foundations of Chinese medicine, which is the leading cause of death and disease is negative emotions. And that's the leading cause of death and disease. And if you think about it, if you have emotional trauma, a lot of past emotional trauma, then what happens for some people, and that is addiction, whether it's a food addiction, an alcohol addiction. And through this whole last couple of years, because we work with the health hospital systems, we got to really see, the amount of addiction rates that went up, the spousal abuse, the child abuse, the suicide rates that went up as a result. And so the first part of the Qigong practices themselves is to give you the tools to deal with emotional stress that's going on in your environment. And I'm not just talking about day-to-day stuff. I'm talking about the old stuff too. Like if you had a childhood like mine, or if you had a lot of people have had a lot worse than I did. And, this stuff accumulates in the tissues. And in particular, different emotions attack different internal organs of the body, and it shows up as various diseases and inflammation inside the body. And so the second part of of Qigong in Chinese medicine is that acupuncture and Qigong, or acupuncture itself, was actually based on viruses and bacteria. That's the foundation of it, because we have so many different ways to diagnose the depth of a disease inside the body, because there's so many people, hundreds of thousands of people dying from these viruses. And so they had to come up with a way to diagnose, to see the depth of the disease inside the body, for which to be able to recommend herbal remedies, Qigong practices, dietary recommendations, in order to help to stop the spread, but also to help to increase one's immune system, and then also help in recovery.
Yes, that's a good lead in. But I'd like to have you share a little bit about this concept of the five elements. We don't hear about it, unless you're taking Qigong or one of these ancient practices. But I think we are so disconnected from nature and from understanding that we're running around so much outside of that whole network. Can you share a bit about that?
Sure. So 5-element philosophy is actually an extension of yin and yang theory. And so the style of Qigong that we actually teach is based upon the 5 elements. And the 5 elements in this case here, we're talking about the 5 major organs of the body, but we're also talking about the 5 seasons. We're also talking about the 5 different flavors of food. We're talking about the 5 personality typologies. We're talking about the 5 or the 6 pernicious influences which can attack the body. So when we look at 5-element theory, again, it is an extension of yin and yang. So according to Chinese philosophy, we have the Tao, which is also referred to as Wu Ji, or God. And from there, then what happens is that you have the first divisions of yin and yang. And from there, the energy continues to unfold, and then we have what is the three treasures, which is heaven, earth, and mankind. So if you've ever seen a Tai Chi symbol, the yin and yang symbol, that is representing those 3 treasures. It's representing the Tao with the first divisions of yin and yang. And if you see the little dot in the 2 little dots, the one little black dot in the white area, the white dot in the black area, that's further showing that within yin and yang is yin and yang. So you can't have one without the other, and it has to keep on unfolding and manifesting. From the 3 treasures, then we have the 4 aspects, the 4 energies of this energy system, and then from there it unfolds to the 5 elements, and it keeps on going from there. So this 5 elements is, especially in Chinese medicine, it's not that they cure all. There's so many different ways to diagnose and to assess a patient, but the 5 elements really gives us a good starting point for which we can start to understand the process of disease inside the body. And so when for example, each of us is a certain personality type. And so, for example, if you're a fire type, there's certain traits and attributes that you should have as that fire type. Now, when you deviate from your fire typology, then what tends to happen is that we tend to indicate disease. So like fire types should be the life of the party, for example. They express themselves through love. They tend to have this strong spirit. and they tend to be a lot of fun, and they tend to bounce around all over the place. But just like a fire in nature, a fire will burn bright and then it burns out. Well, when a person deviates, if a fire type deviates from their typology, then they're not the life of the party. They're shut down. They become inert. And this is if they become inert, then this is a deviation, because they should be around other people, socializing and stuff like that. And so if they deviate from that, then we start to see conditions like heart disease and problems with the valve system of the heart, and problems maybe with the arteries and the veins as well too. And also with their mind, because the fire type, they say that the heart houses the mind, which houses the Shen, which is your spirit. And so if they're shut down due to depression or the deviation, or maybe somebody is shutting them down, maybe they're in a relationship to where their fire energy can express themselves, then they will turn into depression or manic depression. So see, this stuff is really important, because each of us is a primary typology or a combination of two, and then we also have our weakest typology. And if you go to our website, sheltonqigong.com, you could actually take a free 5-element personality quiz to find out what your typology is. And the importance of this is so that way we can start to harness or put together a series of Qigong practices in order to pull you into your power, in order to pull you into your strengths.
We got to have this kind of information to really make an impact, I would say in healing ourselves, in self-healing, because I think for many people, they're utilizing just specific tools. I take this thing and I take that thing over here and I should be okay. But the internal process, and that's what you're talking about, how important that factor is, especially now, Chris, with so much fear and anxiety and uncertainty that people are facing. They are in fight or flight all the time. Can you speak to that? And I'm going to also throw in this part too with let's talk about the kidneys, all these other organs, but because it is so significant to the whole process and the hydration of the body and all of that, can you kind of tie some of that together?
Yeah, so your kidneys are the foundation of your overall constitution. What does that mean? That means at the time of conception, between God, your parents, and your environment predetermines your constitution or your well. So your well, or your kidney well, is like a battery. And this battery naturally declines with age. And the kidneys are the foundation, now listen to this, are the foundation of so many systems. All of the glands in your body, your brain, your reproductive system, your bladder, your ears, the basis for the blood and fluids of your body. It's also the basis for the heat or the motive force to which we move blood or fluids, or to be able to digest. It also controls the hair on your head. It also controls your bones and your bone marrow. So, as we age, what tends to happen? Well, we tend to lose the hair on the top of our head. I did mine on purpose, by the way. Mine's a mindful shaving of the noggin here. But we tend to have maybe hearing loss, balance issues, memory loss, bone degeneration, right? Brittle bones, or bones become weaker. And that's not by accident, it's because this well is diminishing. Now, what are the things that will cause the kidneys to become weaker faster? What will take away from your life constitution quicker? And number one, first and foremost, is fear. Fear causes the energy to descend. When the energy descends, this is where we see fight or flight, for example. So, for example, if I have a young child that comes into clinic at, I don't know, maybe 10 years old and is now all of a sudden wetting the bed, I know automatically there's something going on inside their home, because there's some kind of trauma going on, because this fear is now attacking the child's kidneys. And the kidneys, once again, work with the urinary bladder. And when fear happens, the energy descends, and then that's why the child will wet the bed. So we're talking about fear, but also shock too. So shock will injure the kidneys as well too. So shock could be surviving some severe illness, recovering from chemo, surviving abuse or trauma, seeing something that's very shocking, or witnessing, some kind of violence or something that's very shocking, that will weaken your kidneys. I guarantee you that a majority of the people, for example, that were at ground zero, 9/11, those first responders, at some level, according to Chinese medicine, would have a kidney dysfunction for most of them, just simply because of the shock of what they had to witness and see and experience. So right now, with all this fear going on, and every couple of months it seems like there's something new coming out that creates, in the media, more fear for us to digest. And so my recommendation is that pause a second, and this is where these Qigong practices come in, because there's actually a kidney cleansing exercise to help to strengthen the kidneys, get rid of the fear. There's also a kidney healing sound. In fact, there's actually quite a few exercises, like the white pearl meditation, that helps to strengthen the kidneys. And the reason why there's so many practices harnessing or focusing around the kidneys is because this is the root. So besides the kidneys being responsible for secretion and excretion, these kidneys have such a great functionality beyond what we see according to science. And it's only because of thousands of years of study on the human organism. But going back to the ears, for example, in connection to the kidneys, in utero, scientifically, you can look this up, in utero, when a fetus is forming, as the kidneys grow, the ears will grow at the same time. But for some reason, once that baby is born, they lose sight of the fact that there's a connection with the ears. So when we see inner ear problems, like Meniere's disease, tinnitus, Meniere's disease would be chronic vertigo, they lose sight that the kidneys can play a role or influencing that disease. So right now we're hearing about more and more cases of tinnitus coming up. And actually, unfortunately, right now, some people are committing suicide because the tinnitus is so bad. And what's happened is that their kidneys have just gotten shocked due to one thing or the other. And now the liver may play a role in this as well too. So it's not just the kidneys in this case, but yeah. So we have to look at what is the cause, or how does fear show up, and what does it do? And if you think about it, if you're frozen in fear, what happens? You don't move, right? If you go to catch a wild animal and they're stuck in fear, they actually will freeze. They will freeze and they won't move. And the same thing with the human. You won't move. And that frozen in fear actually does so much damage to the body, because now our sympathetic nervous system is on heightened alert. Like, am I going to die or am I going to survive? And so how can we then change what's going on? And Qigong is a great methodology in order to be able to process what's going on in our environment, but also help to turn that fear into willpower and strength. Because that's the positive virtue of the kidneys, is willpower, having the will to move. And if you think about it, if you don't get enough sleep, let's say you burn the candles at both ends, what happens? The next day, number one, your memory's off. You can't remember as much, right? Number two, the other thing that comes up is that you may notice that you don't have the will to do something, especially if you have to take action on something. You may not have the will to do that. And so the stronger the kidneys are, guess what? The more willpower you will have to accomplish your goals.
And also, interesting, don't the ears look a little bit like the kidneys?
They sure do. Yep.
Yeah, well, your ears reminded me of that right away. No.
You saw that, right?
I'm like, are those ears or kidneys that he's on the side of his head?
I think that Chris is growing his kidneys on his ears, on the side of his face. Boy, he's a special human, that one.
It's easier to care for.
Right. I can just rub them,
Oh my God.
Your butt's on.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Yeah. Well, yeah. My audience knows. I love to laugh, and Chris is the perfect person for me to do that with. Keep laughing. But we have to laugh though. This is the time more than ever where we have to find reason to laugh and to have humor, because of the healing effect of humor, of laughing, that effect on the body. So this is absolutely essential, and not just living in the soup of fear all the time. And so we talk about the kidneys, and the last time you were on the show, I did mention this, so I'm not going to go into it again, but if I hadn't witnessed some things with my cousin that passed, it's like it wouldn't have made as much sense as it does now. Everything that you said, because of the kidney issues that she had, and then the hearing issues. Suddenly, she started to have the hearing issues, and then and then of course there was eyes, and then it was a series of things, the memory, and you saw how they were all connected. And ultimately, what happened? Well, what happened is once the kidneys start shutting down, which is what the doctors say, once the kidneys start shutting down, that's usually the indication that life is coming to an end when somebody is in the hospital.
Yes, yeah, and right now, unfortunately, you're actually seeing an increased amount of professional bodybuilders dying of kidney disease because of the diuretics they're taking in order to sculpt themselves before going on stage. And, so the kidneys are related to the water element. And so this water, this fluid, if you don't hydrate enough, there's obviously issues. Number one, if you don't hydrate enough, we start seeing blood issues, like blood deficiencies, right? But then if you're doing something also that will further cause you to excrete excess amount of fluids, then we're seeing, unfortunately, these professional, talented, amazing athletes passing away. So so once the kidneys go, that's pretty much it. So we want
They're drying out their kidneys.
They're drying out their kidneys, yep. And so we want to preserve this health, and so what are some of the other ways that we can preserve kidney health? Well, first and foremost is getting enough sleep. That's number one. Because Qigong or no other practice out there is not a replacement for sleep. Sleep helps to mend the body, helps to heal the body, and it also helps to recharge those kidneys. What else can we do? Well, obviously hydrate with room temperature water, and hydrate to what is comfortable for you, because I think that everybody's like a snowflake, and, you really have to hydrate according to your constitution, and making sure that, again, this room temperature water, because right now especially it's cold, and, if the weather outside is cold and you're putting cold water into your body, it creates inflammation inside the body, and this will also show up as disease and make the kidneys have to work harder. We could add more foods like Bosch pears. Those brown pears are very good for kidney health. Raisins, dates in moderation, brown rice, azuki beans. We could do seafood, especially saltwater fish, as long as they're not too big, like shark and stuff like that. I'd say no, because there's too much mercury. But and then if you have maybe some condition where you have coolness of the hands, as long as there's no contraindication with shellfish, then I would say, okay, well, we can do shellfish as well too. And then also, like I said, then we also practice Qigong practices. This helps to conserve the kidney well, helps to slow the aging process, and also at the same time too helps to deal with the emotions that you're facing in your life.
All right. Well, I think what we're going to do right now is we're going to take a quick station break. But before that, what I also like Chris to do for us, because I know I'm cramming all of this in that I think is super necessary for you to hear, and you're going to hear about how to connect with Shelton Qigong and so much more. But talking about the different times of night that people are waking up, I want people to be alerted to those various times of night and what it may mean in terms of the health of the different organs. So that's after the break. So stay tuned, and we will be right back after this brief message. And we are back. We're coming to you from KPFK 90.7 FM in Southern California, and of course, streaming live at kpfk.org. You are listening to The Expansion Zone with Sonia Barrett. That's me. And we are speaking with my guest today, Chris Shelton, who is a Qigong master, a Tai Chi master as well. And he is my teacher, trainer as well. I became a certified practitioner trainer through Chris's school. So I love his work very much. Anyway, so let's lead into the question that I had sort of proposed about these different times of night.
Yeah, so your body is always talking to you, and the key with Qigong is that it helps to increase your sensitivity to what that body is saying. And if you're waking up, there's different types of insomnia according to Chinese medicine. But if you're waking up, let's say between the hours of 11 p.m. to 3 a.m., then we know that the liver and gallbladder are out of balance. If you're waking up, let's say 3 to 7 a.m., then we know that your lung and large intestine system is out of balance. So listening to your body, especially most people we find are waking up between the 1 a.m. and 3 a.m. hour, and that's a telltale sign that there is a liver dysfunction going on. Now, depending on the severity of the liver dysfunction, we may also have dreams. We could have dreams of flying. We could have dreams of burning forests, or being in the wilderness, and the wilderness is on fire. And these are telling us, okay, there's too much heat in the liver. So even sometimes the dreams will tell us, too, the depth of, or the certain type of liver condition there is. Because I would say of all the conditions that we see in clinic, there's so many people that come in with various types of liver dysfunctions or liver disharmonies, but there's so many different ways to diagnose it. So in general, I could say that that Sonia has a type of liver imbalance. I could say that my wife has a certain type of liver imbalance, et cetera, et cetera. But I'm just making a general statement. It's all different because there's like excess conditions, there's deficient conditions, and then more complicated, there's the excess and deficient conditions that we find. So if you're waking up during that time, it's your body's way of saying, okay, there's something going on with the liver. And people say, well, I'm eating well, so I don't understand why I'd be waking up during that time. Well, let's look at how much anger do you have? How much resentment do you have? Are you stuck on the news all the time? Are you stuck on social media and buying into what's going on social media? And is that making you angry? So we have to look at where's the anger, where's the frustration coming from? Or because of what you're seeing or you're hearing, is it creating hatred in you, right? Animosity in you. Let's take a look at that. That's then the reason why you're waking up at the time frame that you are. Wow,
that's so insane though. But it's just a fact. And I think if we step away, I know with me, when I noticed the time of night I was waking up, at one point it was 1 o'clock. I mean, it's just like regularly like 1 o'clock. It's like, what is up with this 1 o'clock? And I think that we have to stop and start looking at, okay, well, there's a reason why this is happening specifically. And the language, the communication of this incredible network, I think people really owe it to themselves to really begin to connect more with that, just become more curious. Now, I want to, because I know that you are going to have to leave, or maybe a little bit earlier, and Parisa is going to come in and share. But let's talk a little bit, anyway, from your perspective about the benefit of the G Club. Based on everything we've said, it's like, you want to hear this.
Yes. Yeah, so we have something called the Qi Club that we actually launched during the pandemic. And it first started off because my friend here in Hollywood, his name is Eric the Trainer, a Hollywood physique expert. He started what was called as the Sleek Ninja Challenge, which was 5 days a week. And he would have different celebrities on his Zoom classes, and he made it a lot of fun. But every week he would have some kind of challenge. Like 1 week was the Golden Pillow Challenge, where you had to be in bed by 9 o'clock at night, or the Curfew Challenge, where you had to stop eating by 7 p.m. But he did a Qi Challenge, a 7-day Qi Challenge, and with his viewers from around the world, and it got such a tremendous response that from there, then I maintained it by doing live Qigong classes 3 days a week, and at the time we were doing it for free because people were losing their jobs because of the shutdown and everything, and we do it because number one, to serve other people, and also to make it fun. So we really try to make it a lot of fun. And then once we saw that the economy was starting to open back up again, then we started the Qi Club, which is Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday from 8 to 8:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. And my wife Parisa teaches on Monday and Wednesdays, and she combines a little bit of Pilates with Qigong. I teach Tuesday and Thursdays, and where I'm combining a little bit of Tai Chi with the Qigong. And it's a half-hour class, and it's with people from around the world. And the whole idea of it is to empower you to really take charge of your health. But what was interesting, just to backpedal before we had started the Qi Club, you don't really realize the impact that you have on people's lives until what happened was that we said, okay, well, we're stopping the 3-day Qi class, and we're going to be transitioning. Sonia, we started getting thank you letters and donation checks from people from around the world, because in this time and space of fear and unknowing and anxiety, it gave people a steady tool weekly to be able to handle what was going on in their life and going on in their environment. And there's so many unknowns that was going on. And so the impact is tremendous. And what I love about it is that, we have quite a few members, but on average we have about 30 people that show up, 25 people that show up daily. And then the nice thing about it is that if you don't have time to watch it live, then you have the recordings for up to a week. But what it is it's with like-minded people like yourself. And it's like-minded people, and I think that anybody that listens to your show is somebody who's already awake, seeking deeper meaning in their life. Because you have to get to a certain stage, I think, to be able to understand some of the concepts and ideas of how the universe works, of how consciousness and spirituality and how all this stuff works. So it's a Zoom class. It's a membership course. It's in fact, next week on Monday we're starting a 7-day Qi Revitalizer or Qi Discovery Week. Yeah, Qi Discovery Week. Starts on Monday and goes Monday through Friday from 9 to 10 a.m. And this is where you get a chance to really find out more what the Qi Club is really about. But it's a lot of fun. We make it a lot of fun. We start off with some groovy music in the morning and maybe some puppets a little bit, and then we get serious and we dive into the practice.
It absolutely is, because obviously I am, a member of the Qi Club, and I find it so beneficial because although I hike in the mornings, I get up and I hike, and then I do try to make it back. So, of course, I have to be out there early to get back for 8 o'clock for Qi Club. And of course, it just enhances my own personal practice, especially now that I am also certified. But to be able to be part of this experience with other people is just fantastic. And we have to begin to create our own protocols for healing. It's the bottom line of it. You don't have to use the same tool, one person either all the time, but I think you create a protocol of things that you do for yourself. And this is my whole purpose of really doing this show today with Chris Shelton, with Shelton Qigong. But can we talk a little bit about the heart, the pericardium, something we don't hear about? I want to bring that up too, because the heart is taking a beating as well now.
Yes. So the heart's related back to the fire element. And the heart's associated also with the small intestine. It's also associated with the pericardium, and the pericardium is the sac that actually protects the heart. And we actually will say that when diseases or emotions hit, they actually will attack, or pernicious influence hit, they will attack the pericardium first before being transferred over to the heart. So yes, your heart is the emperor, empress of the body. It really dictates how much of an emotion is going to be expressed or suppressed. And if you think about it, if you're heartbroken about something, what happens? Your heart aches, right? If you lost a loved one and you're grieving, what happens? Your heart hurts, and then it weakens your lungs. If you're afraid of something, or if you're in fear, your heart races, then it weakens your kidneys. If you're angry at something, what happens? Your heart races, and then it weakens your liver. If you're worried or anxious about something, your heart races, and then it weakens your spleen, stomach, and pancreas. So you see, the heart will dictate how much of an emotion will be expressed or suppressed. And like for a condition, for example, like atrial fibrillation, AFib, that I normally see in clinic more in men, 9 times out of 10 is due to the fact that they're not expressing their emotions properly. And so, these emotions are good because they're a barometer as to what's going on in our life. Emotions are not meant to be suppressed. And when you suppress them or don't express them appropriately, then this is what shows up as inflammation and disease. And, again, I'll say this again, we see it a lot in clinical practice where somebody is physically fit who eats well and is sleeping properly and who's exercising and who's still suffering from carotid artery disease. It doesn't make any sense. So we have to look at that emotional well and how it's affecting the heart. So yeah, the heart is the center of our consciousness. The brain is really the reflection of our reality, and then the heart is our consciousness. There's a group of scientists in Santa Cruz, California. Actually, I think it's Felton, which is right next to Santa Cruz, called Heart Math, and they're proving that scientifically that our consciousness is in the heart. So like if you give a sincere hug to somebody, they say that actually both hearts actually will move a little bit closer together. So this consciousness is real. And if you have a heart impairment, for example, but maybe or energetically, but you go into your physician, your heart is fine, and all of a sudden one of the symptoms is that you have aphasia, you can't talk, you can't speak. That's a heart condition in Chinese medicine. So we look at, okay, well, why is that person suffering from that? And we have to look at, well, how is he or she expressing, or in this case, not expressing the emotions correctly, which is showing up now and creating this inability to speak.
And now, having mentioned your clinical practice, could you also give the listeners some information there too, because we haven't talked about that, just to let them know that you are available. I mean, and you also do Chinese face reading, and it's just amazing. But to understand that they can come to you for treatment.
Yeah, so I do see patients in clinic, and also because of the different ways of assessment or diagnosis, especially through this pandemic, I've been seeing more and more people through Zoom from around the world. And so they could go to sheltonqigong.com in order to schedule an appointment. And if you have any questions, and this is the best way, just give us your email and then we'll get back to you right away. But yeah, so we do see patients in clinic, and when people will say, well, what do you do in clinic? Well, what happens in clinic is that you come in, whatever your condition is, we go through the etiology of what's been going on, what's the history, whatever labs you have, doctor reports you have, we cover those. And then through the assessment process, then we put together a treatment strategy for which then to treat. And there's different ways that we do this with old systems of Chinese medicine like cupping and gua sha and moxibustion and point therapy. And we have really high results, especially with chronic pain. And chronic pain issues, especially like back issues or neck issues, are actually really easy to fix. And my second book that's going to be coming out in 2022 is on how to fix the back yourself, and how much of it is actually emotionally related. And so yeah, so I work with all different kinds of conditions, and you'll be surprised that if you come in with multiple conditions, as we start to clear up one, others will start to clear up as well too, because of the interconnectedness of the whole organism. But the other thing we have too is that if you're somebody like Sonia, that wants to learn more about Qigong, let's say you just want to do a deep dive, then we do have a teacher training course. The next one starts this January. January 31st, and level 1 is 13 weeks, and it's interactive, and it's a great way to dive deep. We call it a Qigong teacher training course, but not everybody that takes the course wants to be an instructor. Most people that honestly take it just want to dive deeper, to peel away the layers, because they're tired of being sick. They're sick of being sick and tired, and they're looking for a way to transform and change the process of what's been going on in their life.
It definitely is incredible. It just really opens you up to understanding more about the network in your body, and how it connects externally well with the environment. I just think that anybody would benefit from this. Anybody that has a body would benefit from this. So if you have
or
a body,
living inside their body at least.
exactly, a moving body. But now this is really great. I would like to introduce Parisa Shelton. And Parisa is also my hiking buddy as well. But just a really fantastic team. And Chris did share with us about the Chi Club. And I wanted to know if there's anything else that you wanted to add, because you're such a fantastic teacher on there as well. And you do make it fun and light and come up with so many new things. What else can you add?
Thank you, Sonia. Well, what I'd like to add is that because the heaviness of the environment of what's been going on over the last year and a half, really ultimately with the Chi Club, the first intention is to help get people out of their head and back into their body, and to lighten the load, so to speak, to create some levity. And that's why we use the puppets in order to kind of break that mundane, like...
It's therapy.
Yeah, exactly. It's puppet therapy. So we try to start with some fun and laughter. We usually pick a really great song that means something to us to start off each class, and then we introduce with the puppets. And then after we've had a good laugh and we settle in and we feel more connected with everyone in the class, and also if you're watching the recording, we could just really feel that chi flow. And then we drop into the practice. And we had one student say that we take the practice very seriously, but we still like to have lots of fun. So that's ultimately with the Chi Club, one of the intentions and the goal there is to have some fun, to create that community connection, because the other thing is that so many people are feeling isolated and alone. And we want you to know that you are not alone, and that there are people out there who care about you and who want you to be the best person that you can be. And really, Chris is a unicorn. So are you, Sonia, by the way.
Thank you.
Yes. I mean, it seems miraculous, some of the transformations and transmutations that we have witnessed over the years. Chris and I have been married for 10 years. We've been together for 11 years. And just watching and observing and experiencing all these life-changing moments is such a gift and a blessing. And I just really feel so grateful to be able to combine our personal life with our professional life. It's really so fulfilling and so fun. And I just couldn't have imagined a better situation in terms of working with my spouse. So we do like to have a good time, and we do the private sessions one-on-one. Chris sees a lot of clients one-on-one, and we do group classes in person and online. Of course, in person is preferable. Let's just be honest. That group face-to-face interaction, there's not much that can beat that. However, with the circumstance and with the inability to meet in large groups as much as we did before the pandemic, Zoom is the second best thing. And we really see a lot of people turn their cameras on, and you really can feel that connection with the community at large. So it's a lot of fun.
And we have a few minutes. So Chris, if you need to go, I know you have a patient coming.
Anyway, Sonia, yeah, I have to get going here. I'll turn the mic over to Parisa, but thank you once again for having me on your show, and thank you for helping to spread this knowledge, and thank you for being the anchor for this consciousness community for which you serve. So it's always a blessing to share this time with you, and I look forward to doing it again.
All right. Thank you so much, Chris. Parisa, we've got just a few minutes.
Okay.
But I would like to hear just if you can, get your story in maybe 2 minutes in terms of your introduction to this kind of work. I mean, obviously you were you were already in this arena before you guys met, which was, I think, maybe the lead in as to how you met. But what is it that drew you? What happened for you?
What drew me was I was working high tech, actually, for my parents own a high tech firm in Silicon Valley. And I discovered one day that if I continued down this high tech path, high tech sales, that eventually I was going to turn into my mom, which is what I did not want. Mom, if you're listening, happy birthday. I just realized like I needed to do something else. And I love my mom, but it was just like too much stress. I realized that is not the life that I wanted. And so I went through this transitional period where I was working in fitness and health and then also doing the high-tech sales. So there was like that transitional period, and I realized, okay, I can do this. And that's when I decided to leave the high-tech world, working for the man, and moving into health and fitness. Fast forward a few years past, and I was studying massage therapy at a local junior college, and that is when I first got introduced to Qigong through one of the teachers at De Anza College. And then what happened was that teacher he was a male teacher, and he was about 30 years older than me. And without knowing it, I realized he was trying to use his chi powers in order to manipulate my mind. Along that same time period is when I met Chris, and we had a mutual client that said, oh, you have to meet Chris. She just had the foresight that we would have a strong connection. And when I met Chris, and then we just it was an instantaneous connection, and literally within a month, we merged our business, we hooked up romantically and professionally, and we haven't looked back since. At that time, we were doing mostly private sessions and group classes in person. We had a studio in Willow Glen in San Jose. We did a whole big remodel, created a big, beautiful studio space, and that's where we served the Silicon Valley area for about 10 years. We still have our office in San Jose, and then we also have our office down here in Burbank. So it's been quite an adventure. And
I love
quite a
it.
cheap flow. Yeah.
It's the journey of life, the adventure of life. And to be able to do what you love, that is just incredible.
Such a blessing.
Yeah,
It's
such a blessing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, so we're there. So any last thing that you'd like to share about the Chi Club coming up? Or
If you'd like to learn more about the Chi Club, then join us for Chi Discovery Week, which is going to be today, Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. Pacific time. And also, if you miss the live class, then you can also catch that recording on our YouTube channel at Chris Shelton Qigong. So that is there for you. And thank you so much, Sonia, and thank you for listening and for tuning in. It's just so much fun and such a pleasure.
Thank you so much, Parisa. Thank you both for being on the show. Thank you for everything that you do, all that you share. It's just you both are such a treasure. Thank you.
Ditto. Thank you.
All right. And to the listening audience, thank you so much for joining me today and every Monday at 1 p.m. And thanks to our engineer and to you, the listening audience. Be sure to visit theexpansionzone.com for the replay of this and so many other shows in the archive. Lots there. And do subscribe to the YouTube channel, Instagram, all of those places. And to find out more about me, visit therealsoniabarrett.com to find out what's coming up. Lots coming up, retreats and so on. So that's therealsoniabarrett.com. And as always, I like to remind you to live life to its fullest and question everything. Until next time, see you then.
Question everything. I like that. Cool.